The smell of fried bacon mixed with the bitterness of burnt coffee. That's when I knew the day would go wrong. I was sitting at the kitchen table in our small diner, staring through the window at the sign, Henderson and Sons Diner. The sunlight hit me right in the eyes, but I didn't turn away. It reminded me why we'd started all this in the first place. The business had been in the family for 30 years. I founded it back when my eldest son, Michael, was just learning to flip pancakes without hitting the ceiling. He's 36 now, and officially he runs the place. Officially, because anything that has to do with money, suppliers, or people still goes through me. That morning, he came in later than usual. No smile, no morning, Dad. He just tossed his keys onto the counter, signed some paper, and asked Susan, our bookkeeper, for a copy of the weekly report. His tone was dry, and for the first time, I noticed he was avoiding my eyes. Something wrong with the suppliers? I asked, pretending it was casual. No, just checking quantities, he replied, without even looking up. I could have ignored it, but when your son talks to you like an auditor instead of a father, something's already cracked. That was the first moment I felt it. Someone close was lying. Later that same day, I stayed after closing to clean the kitchen. Susan was about to leave, but said quietly before walking out, "By the way, Mr. Henderson, Michael asked me not to show you the latest reports. Said he's working on a small structural update." A structural update. That's what they call it now when they're pushing the old man aside. I waited until everyone was gone, opened the safe in the back room, and saw an empty shelf. Where the property lease documents used to sit, there was only one sheet left, a new contract. The listed tenant was a company called North Creek Hospitality LLC, and the signature at the bottom was my son's. I realized who I'd underestimated, but I stayed quiet. The next morning, I pretended to know nothing. Michael and I cooked breakfast together for the morning shift. I caught the scent of his new cologne, sharp, unfamiliar, foreign. He joked with the staff, laughed even, and when I asked what that new company on the papers was, he answered with unnerving calm. "Partnership, Dad. Makes things easier with the bank." "Without me," I said quietly, not wanting to make a scene. "I'll explain everything when the time's right. Don't dramatize." Then he put his hand on my shoulder. Not gently, as if to hold me back from something. That gesture told me more than all his words. 2 days later, a man in a suit came into the diner. Tall, polished, with that kind of confidence only lawyers or salesmen of the future have. Introduced himself as Mr. Crosby, a business restructuring consultant. Said he wanted to clarify some ownership details. "My name's on the ownership registry," I said. "Yes," he replied, unfolding the documents. "But now as a minority partner." Michael stood beside him, not meeting my eyes. In his hands, a cup of coffee he didn't even drink. I felt a chill, though it was nearly 90 degrees outside. "Is this true?" I asked. "You always said you'd hand it over to me someday." "I just made it official," he said evenly. I didn't slam my fist on the table only because I saw our waitress pretending she hadn't heard a thing. That was the sentence after which there was no way back. That evening I didn't eat dinner. Sat on the porch, listened to crickets, thought about how many years Michael's mother and I had poured into that business. She's been gone 10 years now, but I could almost see her eyes. She'd have said, "He's just lost, John. Talk to him." But I could feel it. This wasn't someone lost. This was someone who had crossed the line on purpose, and there was no regret in it. Why did I stay silent then? "Give me a minute. I'll explain." The next morning, I went into Susan's office and asked to see all Michael's recent emails. She hesitated, but I told her plainly, "If you don't show me, he'll blame you when this all blows up." She nodded and opened the folder. There was a chain of messages with that same company, North Creek Hospitality. Strange names, corporate signatures, and the subject line, rebranding and acquisition of Henderson's property. The last line made me stop cold. After signing the agreement, father must no longer have access to financial reports. Condition fulfilled. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. There was a metallic taste in my mouth. Not anger, not fear, something colder. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. And right then I decided, either I'd take my name back, or he'd lose his. I stood up, thanked Susan, and left. Outside, the air smelled like a coming storm, trembling, waiting for someone to make the first move. I made a decision that would split our month in half. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. That Tuesday morning, Before the diner opened, I came in early. The parking lot was empty except for Michael's truck. The neon sign still flickered from the night before. The red, "Oh" in open kept blinking out, like it couldn't decide whether to give up. From the back office came his voice, low, calm, too calm. I stopped by the door, barely breathing. "Yeah, I'll have it ready by Friday," he was saying. "No, he won't interfere. He doesn't even know the company exists." Then silence. I heard the click of his lighter. He hadn't smoked in years, and his voice again, quieter now. "Once the transfer's done, we'll change the name. He won't recognize the place." That last sentence, it landed like a nail. I walked away before he saw me. Sat in the empty dining hall, listening to the old refrigerator hum. There's something about a diner before dawn. It's honest. The chairs stacked upside down, the smell of bleach, the sticky edge of the counter. It doesn't lie. That morning, I promised myself I wouldn't either, not anymore. Around noon, I went to the county clerk's office. Old habits die hard. When something smells wrong, you dig where the papers live. The clerk, a woman named Doris, had known me for decades. Used to come by for pie every Sunday. She pulled up the business filings, frowned, and turned the monitor toward me. There it was, North Creek Hospitality LLC, registered 2 months ago. The listed address, a P.O. box in Knoxville. The managing partner, Ellen Ward. The name meant nothing to me. But the filing date did, 2 months ago, right before Michael told me he was handling things at the bank. "Doris," I said quietly, "can you print those for me?" She gave me that look, the kind people give when they know they're crossing a line out of kindness. "You didn't get these from me," she said. I nodded, folded the papers into my jacket pocket, and left. The sky was heavy, gray clouds pushing low, thick with humidity. I didn't know it yet, but that was the last calm day I'd have for a while. I had one name now, one thread, and I pulled it too hard. That evening I drove out to Knoxville. 2 hours of silence and asphalt, just the hum of the tires and the ache behind my eyes. I found the P.O. box address, a shared mailbox storefront between a liquor shop and a payday loan place. Inside, a young clerk looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for a woman named Ellen Ward. She's got a box here, number 142. He hesitated. "Sorry, sir, we can't give out." I slipped a 20 on the counter. "Just tell me if she comes by often." He looked around, lowered his voice. "Once a week. Fridays, usually. Drives a black Mercedes, fancy kind. Always alone." That was enough. I didn't need her address. I just needed to see her face. Friday evening. I parked across the street around 6. The air smelled of gasoline and rain on hot pavement. At 6:30, a black Mercedes pulled in, sleek, tinted windows. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. Late 30s, sharp suit, hair tied tight. She moved like someone used to giving orders, not taking them. She checked her phone, unlocked the box, pulled out a stack of envelopes, then paused, reading one before slipping it into her bag. I didn't have to see the logo twice. The letterhead said Henderson and Sons Diner. My diner. I knew then. She wasn't just part of the company. She was the one running it. I followed her car as she left, just for a few blocks, keeping distance. She turned into a gated neighborhood, swiped a card, disappeared inside. I waited until the gate closed behind her. I wrote down the address number, though I had no plan yet. When I got back to the diner that night, Michael was still there. Lights off, office door cracked open. I saw the glow of the computer screen and 2 glasses on the desk. He wasn't alone. A woman's voice, low, confident, familiar now. "Ellen, once it's rebranded," she said, "we'll triple the value. He'll thank you one day." "He won't," Michael answered. "He'll just think I betrayed him. You did what you had to. It's business, not betrayal." "Try telling him that," he said, and poured another drink. I backed away slowly, before they noticed. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, from something colder. Calculation. I went home, poured myself a drink, and spread the printed papers across the table. Her name, her company, my son's signature beside hers. And one more thing. A clause buried deep in the contract. Upon rebranding, ownership transfers entirely to North Creek Hospitality. Meaning once the diner changed names, even Michael wouldn't own it. She would. That's when I realized. He wasn't the only traitor. He was the bait. The next morning, I confronted him. Not directly, not yet. I asked about payroll, about suppliers, about why certain checks hadn't cleared. He gave vague answers, avoided my eyes. Then, when I mentioned Ellen's name, he froze. Where did you hear that? You tell me who she is, I said. He hesitated, then forced a smile. Just a consultant. Helping with expansion. Expansion into what? Losing our name. His jaw tightened. Dad, you don't understand. This is how things work now. You either grow or get bought. And what are we doing, Michael? I asked. Growing or getting bought? He didn't answer, just walked away, wiping his hands on a towel that was already clean. That was my first mistake, showing my cards too soon. Because by nightfall, both of them knew I was onto them. And when people like Ellen Ward know you're watching, they don't wait. They move first. By Monday morning, the smell of coffee in the diner turned bitter in my throat. The sign still said Henderson and Sons, but in my head, I already read it as a tombstone. Something small but vital was gone. Not the recipes, not the customers, but the rhythm. Michael's rhythm. He was distracted, late, cautious with his words. The others felt it too. They kept glancing at me like waiting for a thunderclap. That was the week I stopped waiting. I started by calling old favors. There was a man named Harris, retired accountant, used to do books for half the town back in the day. He owed me one. I helped his brother with a job reference when nobody else would. I drove out to his place, a small ranch house at the edge of a cornfield, and laid everything on the table. The fake company, the missing lease, the signatures. He listened without interrupting, then took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. John, he said finally, you're not going to fix this with shouting. Paper's what makes the world believe a lie. You want truth? You need your own paper. I nodded, though I didn't yet grasp the weight of what he meant. That advice would turn out to be both the key and the curse. 2 days later, I took Harris's words seriously. He helped me trace the company filings deeper, found another layer. North Creek Hospitality was owned by a holding firm out of Delaware called EW Holdings. The initials were hers, of course, Ellen Ward. The structure was built like a maze, and at the center stood one clear purpose: transfer the diner's property deed into that shell before anyone noticed. But there was something she hadn't expected. The original deed still listed Henderson and Sons LLC as a co-owner, and any major change required both signatures, mine and Michael's. I still had a legal foothold. Small but real. One opening. One chance to flip the board. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the diner at closing, the hiss of the soda machine, the faint hum of the neon light, the grease smell baked into the floor. Everything we'd built together was still there, stubbornly alive. I sat at the counter, the same stool where Michael used to do homework when he was 12, and thought of his handwriting on those papers, the same hand that once drew rockets in baseball fields. It wasn't just betrayal I felt. It was grief in a disguise I didn't know how to name. By Thursday, I had a plan. Harris drafted a document that would, on paper, freeze any transfer until both owners re-signed. All I had to do was file it at the clerk's office before Ellen's people pushed theirs through. I could do it quietly, maybe even buy us time. But timing, that's where I slipped. When I got to the office, the clerk told me someone had already filed an amendment that morning. Not Ellen, not her lawyer. Michael. I stood there staring at the date stamp. He'd been one step ahead. He'd nullified my power to veto without even confronting me. That meant only one thing. She was feeding him my moves. I drove straight back to town, hands clenched on the steering wheel. Rain started halfway, heavy, punishing. By the time I reached the diner, she was there. Ellen, sitting at the corner booth like she owned it already, black folder open, her umbrella dripping onto the vinyl seat. Michael was beside her, shoulders tight, eyes darting between us as I walked in. Dad, he started, we were just talking business. I finished for him. Without the owner, Ellen didn't even flinch. Mr. Henderson, she said smoothly, we're finalizing details for the transition. I assure you, your interests are my interests. I cut in. Lady, my name's on that sign out there. You think I care about interests? Michael's face hardened. Dad, don't make a scene. That line, don't make a scene. He'd used it once before, at his mother's funeral, when I tried to say she'd have hated the way we all pretended things were fine. Back then I'd stayed quiet. Not this time. Son, I said, keeping my voice low, you don't see it yet, but she's not saving you. She's gutting us both. Look at the papers. She'll own it all. Ellen smiled faintly. That's enough for tonight. Then she stood, gathered her folder, and left. Michael followed a step behind, not daring to meet my eyes. Here I made the choice that can't be undone, to fight fire the way they did, on paper and in shadows. That weekend, I forged my first signature in 30 years. Harris warned me, "John, this is a dangerous line. You sure you want to cross it?" I said, "They already crossed mine." He didn't argue. Helped me file a temporary lien on the property using the original company name. It wouldn't last long, maybe a week, but it meant any buyer would see the dispute and back off. It was my way of freezing time, long enough to expose them. Only problem? To make it stick, I needed proof of collusion between Ellen and Michael. Something solid. Emails weren't enough. I needed her voice, her words. So I did what no father should have to. I bugged my own diner. A tiny recorder under the counter where they liked to meet. I waited 3 days, silent, pretending to fix the coffee machine each morning just to check the battery. On the 4th night, they met again. Ellen's voice came through clear when I listened later. "Once we finalize, you'll get your payout, Mike. After that, the property is fully ours. Clean exit." And Michael, my son, said, "He'll never forgive me." Ellen laughed softly. "You'll get over it." That was the proof. That was the wound. I had what I needed, but not what I wanted. Proof doesn't fix blood. It just draws more of it. That Sunday, I sat alone in the dark diner. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, steady as breathing. I stared at our old family photo on the wall. Me, his mother, him as a boy holding a baseball glove too big for his hand. I thought of tearing it down. Didn't. Because somewhere inside that picture was still the kid who believed in us. I told myself I'd save him from her. But the truth was, I wanted to hurt them both. By the end of the week, I'd already decided what to do next. I was going to leak everything, the recordings, the contracts, the fake signatures, straight to the state attorney's office. Not anonymously, with my name. It wouldn't save the diner, but it would bury her. And him, if that's what it took. The moral question wasn't should I, anymore. It was how much of my son am I willing to destroy to make it right? That question didn't leave me for the rest of the month. And before I could answer it, she struck first. The locks were new, the sign was gone, and the smell. God, the smell. It wasn't ours anymore. Cinnamon lattes instead of black coffee, music from hidden speakers, white paint over the red walls where we used to hang family photos. The banner said the Creek House Cafe, grand opening soon. I stood across the street, watching workers scrape the last traces of Henderson and Sons off the windows. Michael's truck was parked out back. He was inside. I saw him through the glass, giving instructions, pointing where to move things. He didn't look like a man who'd lost his soul. He looked like a man who'd convinced himself it wasn't for sale. And I understood then. He still thought he was in control. That afternoon, I went to see Harris again. He'd already heard about the new locks. "She's fast," he said, lighting his pipe. "Too fast. That means she's scared of something." Scared of me. Scared of a secret getting out. No one moves that quick unless they're covering tracks. I sat there in his kitchen while rain hit the roof, and for the first time in weeks I saw a crack of hope. If Ellen Ward was afraid, maybe she wasn't untouchable. Harris leaned forward. "John, remember that holding company? EW Holdings?" I checked its records again. Guess what? It's not just Ellen's. There's a silent partner listed, initials C. M. H. I froze. Michael's middle name was Christopher. C.M. H. I repeated. "Could be anyone," Harris said carefully, "but my gut says it's him. Maybe she made him think he was getting half. But that's not how these people work. He's probably the fall guy." The fall guy. My son. Here's where the pity crept in. And pity is the first step to ruin. I couldn't sit still after that. I drove back to town and parked near the cafe. Waited until dusk when the workers left and Michael stayed behind, alone. I knew his routine. He'd close up, check the stock list, grab a drink from the mini fridge, sit by the window for a few minutes like he used to. I walked in through the back door I'd installed myself 30 years ago. They hadn't found that lock yet. He didn't look up when he heard the hinges squeak. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I built this place," I answered. "I'll go where I damn please." He sighed, rubbed his face, finally met my eyes. "Dad, it's done. The deal's finished. I can't undo it now." "You don't even know what you signed, do you?" He frowned. "I know enough." "Then why are your initials listed under silent partner? Why does she own the holding company, not you?" His mouth opened, then shut. For the first time in weeks, he looked unsure. Where did you get that? I don't need to tell you. What you need to know is she played you, son. You sold your family for a seat at a table that doesn't even exist. He turned away, staring at the espresso machine like it could answer for him. Ellen wouldn't. She would, I said flatly. And she did. The next day, I got my confirmation. Harris called early, voice urgent. John, you'll want to sit down. That holding company, it's under federal investigation. Money laundering, shell acquisitions, false filings. She's been flipping small-town properties for profit under fake valuations, using local partners to keep it quiet. I laughed, a dry, tired sound. And my son's one of her locals. Yeah, Harris said. She's using his name as cover. If this goes public, he's the one holding the bag. I hung up and stared at the wall. That was the secret she was hiding. Not just the theft of my diner, but a trail of crimes that would bury him alive. So now the question changed, from how do I punish him, to how do I keep him breathing? That evening, I found Ellen at her office downtown, a glass building that smelled of steel and money. I waited until she came out, heels clicking against marble, coat perfect, phone to her ear. Ms. Ward, I called. She turned, smiled, the kind of smile people use when they think they already won. Mr. Henderson, you're trespassing again. I'm offering you a deal, I said. Oh, you walk away from the diner. Leave the deed in my son's name. I'll keep your little Delaware circus out of the papers. She tilted her head, pretending to think. And if I don't, then I send every document I have to the Attorney General. Her smile faded, just for a second, but I saw it, the flicker of fear. Then she stepped closer, lowered her voice. You think you're saving him? You'll destroy him. His name's already on everything. You expose me, he goes down first. And that's when I knew she was right. She'd made sure of it. I had proof enough to end her, but to do that, I'd have to end him too. The letter came on a Tuesday. You think you won, John. Check the bank account. I did, and found a new deposit. $17,000. No name, no note. Just a reminder she was still out there, still pulling strings. That night, Harris called. She's covering tracks. Someone's buying silence. Whose? I asked. Yours. Or your son's. Michael came over hours later, pale and shaking. They froze everything. The cafe, my accounts. Dad, what's happening? She's burning the evidence, I said. Including you. He stared at me, lost. Then what do we do? I looked at him. My son, the one who'd betrayed me, the one I was still trying to save. We finish it, I said. Before she finishes us. That night, I mailed the files, every proof of her fraud, straight to the state attorney, with my name on the envelope. By dawn, Ellen Ward was gone. By dusk, the law was already looking for her. And I realized, revenge doesn't end things. It just clears the board for whatever comes next. By the time the letter arrived, the month had narrowed down to a single week. The sky was the color of old change, low and gray, and the nights tasted of metal and rain. I had been keeping careful score, what she took, what she left behind, what my son still had in his pockets. I counted mistakes like other men count blessings. That morning I opened the bank account she told me to check. My hands didn't tremble until I saw the balance. Cleaned out, but not empty. A single deposit sat there, $17,000, wired 2 days ago from an unfamiliar number. No note, no sender name. Just the money and a cold little certainty. Whoever sent it wanted me to know they could still reach inside and move what we thought was safe. I had one number left to call. I called Harris first. He picked up on the second ring, voice like gravel. You found it, he asked. I told him the amount and where it came from. He swore softly. That's not hers. That's a warning from someone higher. You did more than poke a hornet's nest, John. You whacked the hive. What does that mean for Michael? I asked. The question landed between us like a thrown plate. It means she didn't come alone, he said. She had insurance. Partners who make problems disappear. They'll want to see the man who started the trouble. I understood then that whatever fight I'd begun was no longer mine alone. That afternoon, I found my son at the small apartment above the laundromat where he'd been staying since the locks changed. He was thinner, his eyes carrying an exhaustion like old wood. He didn't speak when I came in, only handed me a paper. A quiet little eviction notice slipped under his door earlier that morning. Mom used to say you were stubborn, he said finally. Guess I got that from you. You got it from both of us, I answered. But stubborn doesn't fix everything. He looked at me, then at the paper in my hand, then back. You could have let me be. Let her take it. We could have moved on. And be left with a name that wasn't ours. I asked. Or with a criminal record for trying to hold on to it. He swallowed. She promised me a life, Dad. I wanted to believe her. You were bait, I said. The word hurt us both. He flinched like a man taking a hit he deserved. She used your name as a shield. He laughed once, a short sound. Then what now? You burned her. She vanished. The accounts froze. But they still have muscle. The choice came back at me like a bill I couldn't pay. Run or stand. That night, I went to the diner. It was empty, the board still bare where our pictures had hung. I sat at the counter until the cleaning lights buzzed and went low, until the neon gave up its last stubborn flicker. I let the silence do its work. I could press the records into the attorney's hands, have Ellen indicted, have Michael subpoenaed, have the whole sordid thing pulled into the public light. I could watch a courtroom pick the meat off both our bones. Or I could take another road, trade silence for leverage, and use whatever shame she'd earned against the people who still had her back. Harris called at 2 a.m. They moved first, he said. Your mailbox was checked. Someone came by asking about you. I felt the old, dull fear, but something else, too. A long, steady readiness. That readiness had the shape of years spent fixing broken things, feeding people, wiping counters. It wasn't righteous. It wasn't pretty. It was necessary. I had one way left to stop them without calling down a storm on my son. The morning I decided to act, I made 2 preparations. First, I wrote a short, clean letter to the state investigator handling Ellen's case. Signatures, dates, the recordings, the forged filings, every breadcrumb. I sent it certified, with a note asking for priority review. If the state wanted to find her, they had what they needed. No drama, no theatrics, just facts. Second, I drove to the smallest branch of the bank in town and asked for a meeting with the manager. I laid out what I had, the wire, the missing funds, the threats. I told him what was likely to happen if his institution got a name on the wrong list. Banks do not like risk, they react to it. I asked, not loudly but with the kind of certainty that comes from knowing a man's patterns, for a freeze on any account linked to the holding company and for alerts on large outbound transfers. He agreed. Maybe he agreed because he trusted me. Maybe because he was tired of losing small-town clients to big-city sharks. Maybe because my name still meant something in that ledger room. Either way, paperwork was moving, and paper was law. I moved pieces the only way I knew how, with quiet, boring legal pressure. The next day, word came in like rain. Federal agents, quiet, precise, arrived in town. They spoke with Doris, with bank clerks, with Harris. Ellen's name, now attached to laundering and fraud, resurfaced under subpoenas. The manager at the bank called me before lunch. The wire that hit my account was traced. It came from a shell registered to a separate, offshore trust connected to a man whose name matched the initials in Harris's files. C.M. H. Christopher M. Henderson. Michael's legal name spelled in cold ink. He had been used as much as he'd wanted to be. The agents were careful with him. They asked questions without accusations at first. They wanted the story, the truth. I told them everything. The calls, the recordings, the forged filings, the night I stuck a recorder under the counter. I said it plain, without show. My confession was a weapon aimed at the people who would use my son as a shield. They didn't arrest him that day. They didn't indict me either. Instead, they listened, and they acted. They put temporary holds, froze accounts, issued warrants. They began to unpick the web Ellen had woven. It wasn't vengeance. It was procedure, and that was the mercy I could give my son. 2 weeks later, in the cold light after the storm, the town began to breathe again. Ellen was found, arrested in a motel 2 counties over with a fake ID and a suitcase of passports. Her partners were being traced. Christopher Henderson, my son, was subpoenaed, grilled, then ultimately released without charge because the agents concluded he'd been an unwitting participant, manipulated and lied to buy a woman who'd promised him a future. They did not call him a criminal. They called him a witness. That distinction kept him out of jail. We lost the diner's name. The sign never went back up. The counter still smelled faintly of lemon oil and old grease. Customers came by to ask if we were reopening. I told them the truth in the simplest way, not yet. Michael kept his head down. He worked odd shifts helping folks move, fixing things he'd once priced out, paying back debts with the slow, stubborn labor of a man trying to repair a life. He did not ask me to forgive him. He didn't need to. Some debts are paid by living through the consequences. And the question that had sat in my chest for weeks finally untied itself. What kind of man did I want to be now? In the end, I chose a small mercy. I met him at the old counter one wet morning, 2 cups of coffee between us. He didn't look up when I placed one in front of him. He took it, hands steady but slow. "You could have walked away," he said, "and leave this to her." I answered, "No." He sighed. "You could have let me learn. Or fail." "I wanted to keep what was mine," I said. "I wanted to keep you safe. I did wrong." He looked at me then, and something in his face softened. No absolution, no surrender, just the tired trust that comes after too many storms. He set the cup down. "We rebuild, or we don't," he said. "But if we do, it'll be on our terms." I nodded. "On our terms."